Hello everyone, I'm Lisa Flint, I've just landed. And today we're back with more Dragon Age Origins. Last time we completed the Redcliffe Arc, and we've got a new quest. We're apparently gonna go find Brother Genetivi, and through him, maybe the Urn of Sacred Ashes. But first, before we go on another long, windy journey, instead we took a break and read some codexes, so we don't get quite so bogged down, and hopefully it won't turn into 2 videos. You know? Alrighty, let us get into it, shall we? Let's start with magic and religion, because we did pick up a few while we're in there. Let us start with 64, apostates. I know nothing about that, Morgan. Apostates. It is not uncommon for the neophyte to mistake apostates and Melfikarum as one and the same. You mean they're not? Oh. Indeed, the Chantry has gone to great lengths over the centuries to establish that this is so. The truth, however... So, wait, the Chantry's getting information wrong on purpose to spread fear? Of course! And we're all the Maker's children, and people wonder why I'm an atheist. Anyway... is that while an apostate is often a Maleficar, he need not be so. A Maleficar is a mage who employs forbidden knowledge such as blood magic and the summoning of demons, whereas an apostate is merely any mage who does not fall under the auspice of the Circle of Magi, and therefore the Chantry. They are hunted by the Templars, and are quite often they will turn to forbidden knowledge in order to survive, but it would be a lie to say that they all... apostates begin that way. Yeah, because, you know, not all mages are human and Andrastian. Anyway, historically, apostates become such in one of 2 ways. They're either mages who have escaped from the circle, or mages who were never part of it to begin with. This latter category includes what we tend to refer to as hedge mages, those with magical abilities out in the hinterlands, who follow a different magical tradition than our own. Avar chastened the Dale of Shelves, yeah, I gotcha. Some of these hedge mages are not even aware of their nature. I call shenanigans at that. Anyway, undeveloped, their abilities can express themselves in a variety of ways, which the hedge mage might attribute to faith or will, or to another being entirely, depending on his nature. Some of these traditions are passed down from generation to generation, as well as the so-called witches of the chastened wilds or the shamans of the Avar barbarians. Yeah. How dare people of different faith have different ways of training their mages, gosh darn it. No matter how a mage has become an apostate, the Chantry treats them alike. Templars begin a systematic hunt to bring the apostate to justice. In almost all cases, justice, air quotes, is execution. 'Cause, yeah, fuck free will in this world. If there is some overriding reason for the mage should live. You know, are you useful? The right of tranquility is employed instead. Whether we of the Circle of Magi believe the system is fair is irrelevant. It is what it is. Wow, that's really frickin' cold. From Patterns Within Form, by Halden, first enchanter of Starkhaven, 880 blessed. Yeah, and people wonder why it is I don't like the circle. It starts out as a good idea, just they take it to some really weird extremes. Anyway. 67. The Commandments of the Maker. Because, you know, I'm in a good place to read about Chantry stuff. These truths the Maker has revealed to me. As there is but one world, one life, one death, there is but one God, and he is our Maker. Because, you know, the Elven gods, the Avarian gods, they don't count. They are sinners. Again, they don't count. Who have given their love to false gods. Yep. Good old-timey faith. Magic exists to serve man and never to rule over him. Foul and corrupt are they, who have taken his gift and turned it against his children. Yeah, that line gets really hard to swallow. They shall be named Maleficarum, accursed ones, or they shall find no rest in this world or beyond. All men are the work of our Maker's hands, from the lowest slave to the highest kings. Those who bring harm without provocation to the least of his children are hated and accursed by the Maker. Those who bear false witness and work to deceive others know this. There is but one truth. All things are known to our Maker, and he shall judge their lives. All things in this world are finite. What one man gains, another has lost. Those who steal from their brothers and sisters do harm to their livelihood and to the peace of our mind. Our Maker sees this with heavy heart. Transfiguration 1:1-5. Yeah. Anyway. Founding of the Chantry, entry 73. Cordelius Dracon, king of the city-state of Orlais, was a man of uncommon ambition. In the year -15 ancient, the young king began construction of a great temple dedicated to the Maker, and declared by its completion he would not only have united the warring city-states of the south, he would have brought Andrastian belief to the world. Well, it hasn't quite happened that way. In -3 ancient, the temple was completed. There, in its heart, Draken knelt before the eternal flame of Andraste, and was crowned ruler of the Empire of Orlais. His first act as emperor, to declare everyone needed to dance. Oh, it's not what he declared. To declare the Chantry as established Andrastian religion of the Empire. I guess that's as good, too. It took 3 years and several hundred votes before Olesia of Montismard was elected to lead the new Chantry. Upon her coronation as divine, she took the name Justinia in honor of the disciple who recorded Andraste's songs. In that moment, the ancient era ended and the divine age began. From Ferelden, Folklore and History, by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar. Wait, not Brother Genitivi? I am disappointed. Anyway, Demonic Possessions, entry 82. Because we know nothing about that. I mean, we literally just encountered it. Why do demons seek to possess the living? I don't know, it's fun. They're bored. Something to do. History claims they are benevolent spirits, the first children of the Maker, angry at their creator for turning them and jealous of those creations he considered superior. Are we, though? Are we really? I mean, the demons seem to have a lot more going in the way of powers. They stare across the veil at the living and do not understand what they see, yet they know they crave it. They desire life. They pull the living across the veil when they sleep and prey on their psyche with nightmares. Whenever they can, they cross the veil into our world to possess it outright. Because no one's ever moved house ever. We know that any demon will seek to possess a mage, and upon doing so will create an abomination. So mage plus demon, no. Okay, gotcha. Most of the world does not know, however, that the strength of an abomination depends entirely on the power of the demon that possessed the mage. This is true, in fact, of all possessed creatures. One demon is not the same as any other. It's just like people, demons are different, with different weaknesses and strengths. Demons can, for instance, be classified. Really? They have little newspapers and everything? Enchanter Brahm's categorization of demons into that portion of the psyche that primarily prey upon has held since the Tower Age. According to Brahm, and I just hear Braun Strowman's belting get these hands. The weakest and most common of the demons are those of rage. I understand that. Rage is simple. They are the least intelligent and most prone to violent outbursts against anything living. They expand their energies quickly, and most powerful of them exhibit great strength and occasionally the ability to generate fire. Occasionally? I think every single rage demon we've met thus far has. Next are the demons of hunger. Nom nom nom. In a living host, they become cannibals and vampires. I want to meet these vampires, and do they sparkle? And within the dead, they feed upon the living. Oh, okay, it's not our idea of vampires. Gotcha. Theirs are powers of draining, both of life force and mana. Next are the demons of sloth, the ones that are attacking me. I wish I continue on, even though it's noon and I've had a full rest all night. The first on Brahm's scale, that are capable of true intelligence, like, we fought in the Circle of Magi, In its true form, this demon is known as a shade, as a thing which is merely indistinct and invisible, for such is Sloth's nature. It hides and stalks unaware, and when confronted, it sows fatigue and apathy. Demons of desire. Hey, we just met one of those in the last quest. Are amongst the most powerful, and are the ones most likely to seek out the living and actively trick them into a deal. These demons will exploit anything that can be coveted, wealth, power, lust, and they will always end up getting far more than they give. A desire demon's providence is that of illusions and mind control. Yeah, they're not nice, but Strongest of all the demons are those of pride. These are the most feared creatures to loose upon the world. Masters of magic and in possession of vast intellect. They are the true schemers. It is they who seek the most strongly to possess mages, and will bring other demons across the veil in numbers to achieve their own ends. Although what they might be has never been discovered, a great pride demon brought across the veil would threaten the entire world. From the Maker's First Children, by Batter, Senior Enchanter of Ostwick, 812, Blessed. Yeah, Chantry not so much pro-demon or spirit or fate in general. Entry 84, Blood Magic, the Forbidden School. Foul and corrupt are you, have taken my gift and turned it against my children. Transfigurations, 1810. The ancient Tevinters did not originally consider blood magic a school of its own. Rather, they saw it as a means to achieve greater power in any school of magic. The name, of course, refers to the fact that magic of this type uses life, specifically in the form of blood, instead of mana. It was common practice at one time for a magister to keep a number of slaves on hand so that, should he undertake the working of a spell that was physically beyond his abilities, he could use the blood of his slaves to bolster the casting. In other words, cheat. Gotcha. Over time, however, the Imperium discovered types of spells that could only be worked by blood, although Lyrium will allow a mage to send his conscious mind into the Fade. Blood would allow him to find the sleeping minds of others, view their dreams, and even influence or dominate their thoughts. Just as treacherous blood magic allows the veil to be opened completely, so that demons may physically pass through into our world. Yeah, I see why people are a little bit creeped out by blood magic. The rise of the Chant of Light and the subsequent fall of the old Imperium has led to blood magic being all but stamped out, as it should be. I call shenanigans. For it possesses nearly as great a danger to those who would practice it as to the world at large. Debatable. But seriously, when you're getting to the point of owning people just for the blood they could produce, yeah, no. From the Four Schools, a treatise by First Enchanter Josephus, or however that last name is pronounced. Wow, looking at Magic Religion, we don't have that much left. Culture and History. Not that much here either. Entry 108, Thetis Calendar. That thing I still don't understand, after many times of trying to. Thetis Calendar. For most good folk, what is a good folk to you? I'm curious. The details of our calendar have little purpose. It is useful only for telling them when the summer day festival will be held, when the snows are expected to begin, and when the harvest must be complete. The naming of the year are a matter of historians and taxmen, and few, if pressed, could even tell you the reason that our current age is named after dragons. Aw, that's sad. It is 930 Dragon Age, the 13th year of the 9th age since the crowning of the Chantry's first divine. Each age is exactly 100 years, with the next age's name chosen in the 99th year. The scholars in Vario advise the Chantry of portents seen in that 99th year, and the Chantry authorities pore over the research for months before the divine announces the name of the imminent age. The name is said to be an omen of what is to come, of what the people of Thetis will face for the next 100 years. In this 100 years, they saw a dragon and went, "Dragon!" Yes. The current age was not meant to be the Dragon Age. Aw, that's sad. Also, I can't imagine this game called anything else. Throughout the last months of the Blessed Age, The Chantry was preparing to declare the Sun Age, named after the symbol of the Orlesian Empire, which at that time sprawled out over much of the south of Thedas and controlled both Ferelden and what is now Navarra. It was to be a celebration of Orlesian imperial glory. Yeah, it was put a stop to. But as the rebellion in Ferelden reached a head, and the Battle of the Riverdane was about to begin, a peculiar event occurred. A rampage, the rising of a dreaded high dragon. Dragons had been thought practically extinct since the days of the Navarran dragon hunts, and they say that to see this great beast rise from the frostbacks was both majestic and terrifying. As the rampage began and the high dragon decimated the countryside in its search for food, the elderly divine, Faustine II, abruptly declared the Dragon Age. Understandable. Some say the divine was declaring support for Alay in the battle against Ferelden, since the dragon is an element of the Dufellel family heraldry of King Megran, the so-called usurper king of Ferelden. Be that as it may, the high dragon's rampage turned towards the Orlesian side of the Frostback Mountains, killing hundreds and sending thousands more fleeing to the northern coasts. The Ferelden rebels won the Battle of the Riverdane, ultimately securing their independence. Yay! Go Ferelden! Many thus think that the Dragon Age will come to represent a time of violent and dramatic change for all of Thedas. It remains to be seen. From the Studious Snologin by Brother Janet Teeve, Chantry Scholar, 925 Dragon. Well, there's a blight on, so I understand that whole big cultural change thing that's coming. Wow, there's a lot of culture and history we do not have yet. Huh. Anyway, moving on. Entry 117, The History of Ferelden, Chapter 1. Ferelden, as we think of it now, did not exist before the Exalted Age. Instead, the valley was divided up into dozens of old Alamari clans. They warred constantly with one another over land, honor, and the alliance of the freeholds, and, on one notable occasion, the name given to a favorite Mabari. You know what? I totally believe that. And then, in the 33rd year of the Exalted Age, Calenhad Therin became Terran of Denerim, and everything changed. Most of what we know about the founding of our nation comes from old songs that the bards passed down through the ages. The songs are filled with wild exaggerations and outright lies. This hardly differs from the scholarly papers of some of my Wow, you really don't think very highly of your contemporaries. There is no agreement amongst the poets or scholars on how he did it. But Calenhad gained the support of the Circle of Magi, and they crafted him a suit of silvery white armor that, by all accounts, repelled both arrow and blade. Yeah, it's called plot armor, I take it. Gotcha. Callan had led his army across the valley and captured Redcliffe, one of the only 3 men who ever successfully laid siege to that fortress, and presented himself to the bands of the Landsmeet as their king. 'Cause he had some super big balls, all I'm saying. Poets tell us that every lord knelt before Calenhad without question. The fact that he attended the Landsmeet surrounded by ash warriors and loyal mages in the circle is generally omitted from the ballads, however, because, why keep our allies in this? From Calenhad came the line of Therin kings and queens who reigned uninterrupted until the 44th year of the Blessed Age, when the Orlesian invasion came, and the rightful king was forced to flee Denerim, and for 70 years a puppet sat upon the throne. Until we came and kicked him out. From Ferelden, Folklore and History by Sister Patrine, Chantry Scholar. Entry 121, Geography of Ferelden. The Kingdom of Ferelden is the southernmost civilized nation in Thedas, because, the Avar don't count. Although some scholars dispute that claim to civilization. Gosh darn it, Earlier, you still sore we beat you? It is perhaps the most physically isolated of all the kingdoms of Thedas. To the east is the Amanthrian Ocean, to the north the Waking Sea, and to the south the Kokorshi Wilds, which, in the summer months, are a vast peat bog, and in the winter become a treacherous labyrinth of iced-over waterways. The Frostback Mountains guarded the western border, and the only narrow plain between the mountains and the sea allowed travel between Ferelden and Orlais. Most of the land in the central portion of the kingdom, called the Bananorn, is open plains. These are crossed by the remnants of ancient winter highway that once connected Varjo with Ostagar. Ostagar. I know how things are pronounced. Because Ost is Swedish for cheese. I must be hungry. On the edge of the Kokorshi Wilds. The western part of Ferelden is dominated by Lake Calenhad, a huge caldera filled by the runoff of glaciers from nearby mountains. Lake Calenhad is home of the famed fortress of Redcliffe, as well as the Circle Tower, which houses Ferelden's Circle of Magi. We got some very specific landmarks, is all we're saying. In the east is the vast Brazilian forest, which the superstitious locals profess to be haunted, and from which rise the Dragon's Peak, a solitary mountain that guards the capital city of Denerim. In the Pursuit of Knowledge, the Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Janet TV. And we actually are missing quite a few entries. Next is 127, Lake Calenhad. The waters of Lake Calenhad are steeped in legends. That they are, and magic, because the Circle Tower. The Avar people say that it was once the site of Belenos, the mountain which stood at the center of the world, from which Corf the Mountain Father surveyed the earth and sky. But it was destroyed in the battle between Korth and the serpent Netherarm, leaving only a vast crater behind. When the Lady of the Sky saw that Belenos was gone, she wept, and her tears filled the crater, making the lake. Yeah, good a reason as any. The Devinters believe that the waters of Lake Calenhad were blessed by Razikael, god of mysteries, and that those who drank from them were granted special insights. This was why they built the great tower on an island in the middle of the lake, hoping the powers of the lake would aid their magical research. But most of us know the legend of King Calenhad, which gives the place its name. It is said that Calenhad, therein, spent a year and a day in the Tower of the Magi. Each day he drew a single cup full of water from the lake and carried it to the Fomari at the top of the tower. By magic, each cup of water which forged into a single ring of the mail armor the circle gave to Calenhad in that armor, made from the lifeblood of the land itself. No blade could strike him, no arrow pierce him, so long as he stood on Ferelden soil. So how'd he die? Old age? From Thetis, Myths and Legends, by Sister Patrine, Chantry Scholar. And again, we are missing quite a few here. And next is entry 133, the Orlesian Empire. Because only good things come from Orlais, right? Empresses and fancy cheese. Anyway, there are many lords and ladies in Varjo, but how many of them are actually useful? And I mean this literally. Once the system of noble title in Orlais was a labyrinth. There were barons and baronesses and baronets and sir-barons and a horde of others, each with its own origins and its own nuances of comparison. The Orlesian acrostasy is ancient and much given to competition. All the nobility play the grand game, as it is known, whether they wish to or not. It is which I have to ask, how is Isidore from there? She kind of failed at it. I totally trust Logain, someone that has a really big problem with Orlesians, to help me and my husband. Of course. I'm just saying, maybe she got kicked out for a reason. It is a game of reputation and patronage, where moves are made with rumors and scandal is the chief weapon. No gentle game, this. More blood has been drawn as a result of the grand game than any war the Orlesians have fought. Of this I am assured by almost every gentleman here. But only the gentlemen, because the women are too busy fighting in the grand game. As far as titles went, everything changed with the coming of Emperor Dracon, who established the Orlesian Empire as exists now, and who created the Chantry. There is no more venerated figure in Orlais. In Varjo, the statue of Dracon stands as tall as the statue of Andraste. Dracon determined that the grand game was tearing Orlais apart, so he abolished all the titles besides his own and Lord and Lady. Yeah, that clearly didn't stick. I am told, with some twittering amusement, that this action did not end the grand game as Draken had intended. Now the lords and ladies collected unofficial titles rather than official ones, such as the exalted patron of Tassius Clay, or uncle to the champion of Tremesse. It is a headache to remember such titles, and one winces to think of the poor doorman at the balls who must rattle them off as each guest enters the room. Grateful we don't have to deal with that nonsense. Until many games later. The aristocracy is different from Ferelden in other ways as well. The Orlesians' right to rule stems directly from the Maker. There exists neither the concept of rule by merit, nor the slightest notion of rebellion. If one is not noble, one aspires to be, or at the least aspires to be in the good graces of a noble, and is ever watching for a way to enter the patronage of those who better placed in the grand game. And then there are the masks and the cosmetics. I have not seen so much painting since the kennels at Highever. But that is another story. I want to know that story. Tell me about the masks, darn it. From Beyond the Frostbacks by Bane Turik of West Hills 920 Dragon. Yeah, you guess a Ferelden, he's trying to be nice about it, but he's not quite impressed by it. Anyway, let's round up Culture and History by the last entry we have for it, 152, Redcliffe. Redcliffe. King Kellenhad Theron once famously declared, "The fate of Redcliffe is the fate of all Ferelden." No, 'cause demon-possessed mage child. I don't want that to be true. Certainly, the castle is the finest and last defense for the sole land route into Ferelden, and the country has never fallen to any force that did not first capture Redcliffe. The castle, which, despite being 3 times captured, is popularly described as unassailable, also guards one of the largest and most prosperous towns in Ferelden. Redcliffe village is well sustained near the mountain pass to Orzammar and the Orlesian border, and so serves as a center to foreign trade. For these reasons, Redcliffe is accounted an Arling despite the smallness of the domain. The inhabitants of Redcliffe village are primarily fishermen or merchants, who ship dwarven goods through the pass from Orlais to Denerim. When the entire village smells of smoked fish on certain late autumn mornings, the merchants in their finery do their utmost to pretend otherwise. Aw, you should enjoy your local flavor. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Janet Teavee. God, that guy gets around. Anyway, quest-related, just to mix things up. I see nothing highlighted. Okay, I actually think it's a rolled-up note, so it's the very first one. Entry 306, a rolled-up note. I hope whoever finds this can read it. I hate the thought that my last words might be used as kindling, or maker for blood to wipe someone's bum. But that's happenstance for you, I suppose. My name is Brennan. I was born in Renesfair. I grew apples once upon a time. When the Orlesians came to demand I bow to their emperor, I turned them away. They set fire to my orchards. Oh, that's not nice. To my house, too, dicks, but I didn't care. I stood and watched them burn. Trees die eventually, houses fall, but my honor can be lost only if I let it. That is very much the high road, and good on you, sir. I don't know if I could have as much dignity. They came back a week later and demanded that I swear an oath. This time, when I refused, they clapped me in irons. Now I'm here, and I'll die in this place. It seems a foolish thing to die for, doesn't it? No, not really. If this is the hill you want to die on, all the more power to you. I could have said a few words, and rebuilt my home, gone on with life as if nothing had changed. 100 generations of my family have lived and died on that land, and I won't be the one to trade our family honor for apples. Exactly. Good man. Whoever you are, whatever they've brought you here for, if you leave this place, I hope you'll go to Renesfaire. There's no living remnant of us left there, but you'll find my family all the same. We're stamped onto the earth. We're in the wind that rustles the trees. tell my family how I died, and I promise you they'll hear. Brennan. I actually wish we could go do just that, sir, but the game will not let me. So that is indeed most sad. Anyway, moving on. Notes. Entry 236. Graffiti in Redcliffe Tavern. Don't eat the cheese. Scratched into the bar of Redcliffe's Tavern. That's an oddly specific thing to tell us not to do. What happened to that cheese? Correspondus interruptus. Again, because I believe we have 2 entries here. Okay, I think it's just the first 2. Okay, Correspondus interruptus. Entry 243. My darling Reginald, I burn for you, and because of you, please use the enclosed tincture. If our love is to endure, Sari. Okay. That's a tincture. Tincture? That is a tincture. To wear a flowstone. Age, race, height, I care not for the differences others perceive, but matching your helmet to my tunic for the amusement of standing in line with our new silent sisters invited attention where none was desired. I will not suffer your company again. Alison Highover. Scribbled below. Gonna miss knocking heads with those girls. Okay. Cool. Books and songs. You have a few here. Entry 193. Ballad of Elisai. The wind that stirs their shallow graves carries their song across the sands. Heed our words, hear our cry. The grey are sworn, in peace we lie. Heed our words, heed our cry. Our names recalled, we cannot die. When darkness comes and swallows light, heed our words, and we shall rise. From the Ballad of Asselet, said to have been written after the Battle of Asselet, which ended the 4th Blight, 520 Exalted. That's a short, cute little poem. Moving on to entry 197. The Legend of Galahad, Chapter 1. Prior to the crowning of King Calenhad, Ferelden was little more than a collection of independent Arlings and Tyrings that warred with each other constantly over petty matters. Calenhad was born in 510 Exalted as the 3rd son of a high-ever merchant on hard times. He was eventually sent to a distant cousin, a poor young knight named Sir Foranan, who made Calenhad his squire and a dog handler. As the tale goes, Sir Foranan and his squire became caught up in one of the wars of unity at the time. Arl Midrin was a strong but generally disliked man who was making a bid for kingship. Foranan's own lord, a young fool of an Arl named Tenendor, no older than Calenhad, was besieged by Myrddin's forces at his castle, today known as the West Hills. When Myrddin called Tenendor out to parley, the young Arl asked for a volunteer from among the squires, someone who could masquerade as Tenendor in the parley party. Calenhad kneels before Tenendor and asked for the honor. Aww. Even in youth, kinda being badass. Much of Tenendor and Sir Foraman's dismay, Calenhad immediately identified himself as Arl Midrin. When asked by the Arl why he was here, Calenhad explained that he had been asked to take place of his lord. The Earl said that he had planned to kill Tenendor. Was Calenhad willing to die in his lord's place as well? Calenhad impressed by Myrddin and his allies by saying that he was. Myrddin offered Calenhad place in his own squire, but Calenhad refused, because he is not unloyal, stating that if Myrddin had planned on betraying the right of parley, he was no man of honor. Myrddin's allies laughed at that, and Myrddin himself conceded that Calenhad had a point. He allowed Calenhad to return to the castle safely and launch his final assault. During the assault, both Tenendor and Foranan were killed, but Calenhad found himself on one-on-one combat with Arl Myrddin. In front of all of Merrin's allies, Calenhad defeated the Arl and commanded he call off his armies. The Arl asked Calenhad, who he professed to serve now, if both his knight and his lord were dead. To which Calenhad replied he would do as his honor bade him to, for he had nothing else. "You are not a man known of your honor," Calenhad said, "but I believe you wish to be. You allowed me to live once, and so now I do the same for you. Perhaps if more of our people lived by honor, we would learn to trust each other long enough to live together." And with that, Calenhad withdrew his sword. "I am humbled by your words," Merrin told Calenhad, dropping to a knee. To his allies he shouted that he now knew he would never be king, but he knew who should be. With that, Merrin pledged alliance to Calenhad, whom he named Haran, ruler of Tenedor's lands. From the Legend of Calenhad by Brother Haranan, Chantry Scribe 810 Blessed. Yeah, honor's kind of important to Feraldans. Who knew? Moving on to entry 202. The History of the Chantry, Chapter 2. The History of the Chantry, Chapter 2. When the prophet Andraste and her husband Mepharath arrived at the head of their barbarian hordes, southern Tevinter was thrown into chaos. The Imperium had defended against the invasion in the past, but now they stood without protection of their gods, with their army in tatters and their country devastated by the blight. Many felt that the timing of the invasion was yet another of the Maker's miracles in Andraste's campaign to spread his divine word. Andraste was more than simply the wife of a warlord, after all. She was also the betrothed of the Maker. Wait, she had a harem? She had 2 husbands? Why is that not something we kept going? Enraptured by the melodic sound of her voice as she sang to the heavens for guidance, the Maker himself appeared to Andraste and proposed that she come with him, leaving behind the flawed world of humanity. In her wisdom, Andraste pleaded with the Maker to return to his people and create paradise in the world of men. The Maker agreed, but only if all of the world would turn away from the worship of false gods and accept the Maker's divine commandments. Because free will is for suckers. Armed with the knowledge of one true god, Andraste began the exalted march into the weakened Imperium. One of the Maker's commandments, that magic should serve man, never rule over him, was as honey to the souls of the downtrodden of Tevinter who lived under the thumbs of magisters. I doubt that. Although, well, those who serve under magisters. Magisters themselves, I think differently. The word of Andraste's exalted march, of her miracles and military success, spread far and wide. Those in the Imperium who felt the old gods had abandoned them eagerly listened to the words of the Maker. Those throngs of restless citizens that destroyed temples now did so in the name of the Maker and his prophet, Andraste. As Methrath's armies conquered the lands of southern Tevinter, so did Andraste's words conquer the hearts. It is said that the Maker smiled on the world at the Battle of Valerain fields, in which the forces of Mathrath challenged and defeated the greatest army Tevinter could muster. The southern reaches of the mighty Imperium now lay at the mercy of the barbarians. Faith in the Maker, bolstered by such miracles, threatened to shake the foundations of the Imperium apart. Of course, the human heart is more powerful than the greatest weapon, and when wounded, it is capable of the blackest deeds. But that's a story for another night, and not at all ominous. From Tales, The Destruction of Thetis, by Brother Janet Teef, Chantry Scholar. And now we're missing quite a few entries, so the next one we're going to do is 212, The Blight. The First Blight at that, Chapter 2. The First Blight, Chapter 2. People today have little concept of the consequences of the second sin. Oh, believe me when I say that when asked, pious, chantry-going folk will curse the use of foul magic, spitting and snapping their fingers, but none live today who actually remember the horror that was unleashed so very long ago. Whatever records might have existed, regrettably, did not survive the chaos and ignorance that was to follow. We have only the tales of survivors handed down through the murky ages, and the dogma of the chantry to instruct us. And I don't trust the chantry, and that is precious little indeed. Thank you for acknowledging as much. I believe I am not understating when I say that the second sin unleashed the bane of all life upon Thedas. The Darkspawn are more virulent than the worst plague, a heartless force of nature that came into our world like an ill wind. We know from accounts of later blights, as these Darkspawn invasions came to be called, never has a more appropriate name existed, that the Darkspawn spread disease and famine wherever they tread. The earth itself is corrupted by their presence, the sky roiling with angry black clouds. I do not exaggerate, my friends, when I say that the mass gathering of the Darkspawn is an omen of dread cataclysm. I get to go fight it, yay! This bolstered my spirits, yay! It is said that those cursed magisters who became the first Darkspawn scratched at the very earth to find solace. Really? They were looking for that guy already? In the darkness of the dwarven deep roads. And there in the shadows they multiplied. Knowing how broodmothers are made, I don't like this. Whether by intelligent design or by some last vestige of worship in their minds, they attempted to locate the old gods they had once served. They found what they sought. Dumont first amongst the old gods, once known as the Dragon of Silence, before the Maker imprisoned him and all his brethren beneath the earth for the first sin, uprising the Maker's place in mankind's hearts. Okay, if Maker was that powerful, why the frick Darkspawn? Seriously? The slumbering dragon awoke, freed from the Maker's prison by his twisted followers, and became corrupted himself. Dumont was transformed into the first archdemon, his great and terrible power given will by a rotting, unholy mind. With the Darkspawn horde following, Dumont rose and took wing in the skies once again, bringing the ruin to the world the Maker had created. The old god had become the eye of the dark storm that would ravage the entire world. From Tales of the Destruction of Thedas by Brother Janet T, the Chantry Scholar. Yeah. The Maker's kinda mean. Anyway, moving on. Entry 222. Journal of the Tranquil. Journal of the Tranquil. Some laugh at me. I no longer mind. Once upon a time, I studied as they did. I learned under the tutelage of an enchanter, and attempted to master the art of bending magic to my will, and while I did well enough, I know that I struggled. I saw the way the enchanter looked at me, the sidelong glances of worry and disappointment. While other apprentices were conjuring fire, I could barely light a candle. I was frightened of magic. Yeah, because the culture makes you so. When I was a boy, my grandmother regaled me with tales of terrible Flemeth, the Witch of the Wilds. She told me of the Magisters and how their evil magic infected the world with the Darkspawn. No, that was the Maker. She told me of demons and how they were drawn to the dreams of these who possessed magic like moths to a flame. She told me all these things because she said the talent ran in our family's blood. So let's make a child afraid of their gifts. Good times. And so it ran in mine. All my young life I had dreaded the thought, prayed to the Maker that I was not cursed. Gifted, not cursed. But I knew otherwise. Deep in my heart, I knew. When the Templars came to our home, I knew. The Mage's Tower was terrifying, full of secrets and danger. The Templars glared at me as if I could spring full into an abomination before their very eyes. My enchanter patiently attempted to teach me to marshal my willpower, my only defense should a demon attempt to enslave me. But it was no use. How many nights did I cry myself to sleep in that dark and lonely place? Then my harrowing came at last, my final test. Face a demon, they said, or submit to the rite of tranquility. They would sever my connection to the Fade, and thus I would never dream, and no demon could ever touch me. Unless it's in the real world, see the circle, when it fell. But I would also be unable to do magic, and I would never feel an emotion ever again. Pooh. Facing the demon was certain death, so my choice was easy. It was not so painful. You write as a tranquil. Now I serve in other ways. We tranquil manage their archives. We run the tower, purchase the supplies, and maintain the accounts. Our conditions also allow us to use the magical element lyrium without ill effect, and thus we are the ones who enchant the magical items. We are the merchants who sell these items to the circle permits, and the coin from those sales provide the circle's wealth. Thus, we tranquil are vital. Which scares me. If there aren't enough people to become tranquil, does that mean the circle is going to start making some if there's a deficiency of them? The young and old may stare at me, ill at ease, but they would be worse off without me. They may think me a failure, but there is no horror for me now. I feel no fear of what I am. The shadows are merely shadows, and I am content. Eden, the meek, tranquil the circle of magi, Starkhaven, the free marches. Yeah. I feel sorry for tranquils in general. Anyway, last in Books and Songs, entry 225. Cautionary Tales of the Adventurous. It was then that he realized he wasn't alone. The abandoned camp in front of him was unbelievably welcoming, like a mirage. This in no way sounds familiar, Brazilian Forest. Oh, wait. The fire felt like a warm hand grabbing his heart. It reminded him of a previous life so long ago, when he was happy, running on the sunflower fields with his boy, the sun on his face, laying next to the fireplace with his beautiful wife in his arms. He felt a sharp pain in his heart. His thoughts shifted to the fateful day when everything changed. Blood was everywhere. He held the body of his dead wife in his arms. Around him the ashes of his burned house fell like snow. The stench was terrible. It smelled like darkspawn. He grabbed his axe, touched the icy, cold hands of his boy, and left. He would kill them. He would kill them all. The pain in his heart was unbearable. Maybe not the best way to begin adventuring. He opened his eyes and saw the second most terrifying thing he would see in his life. A shadowy wraith leaning over him, leeching his life away. Around him, the camp was gone, replaced by something familiar, almost peaceful. Bones, death, and despair. Those things aren't comforting. He wondered if all of his life had been an illusion, if he'd ever had a family. For a brief moment, he felt relief. You can't lose something you've never had. But being this close to death brought clarity. He knew it was real. Everything else was an illusion. He could see a smile on his torn face. He had been waiting for this moment for a long, long time. He lifted his weak arms and grasped the demon's face and kissed it. It felt like kissing a cloud made of sand and dust. Suddenly, all sorrow left him, and with it, the last bit of life he had. Wow, that got dark! Before his limp body hit the ground, it was all over. He was finally free. From Cautionary Tales of Adventurous by Brother Ramos of Giliharam, 794 Storm. Wow, that got dark quick. Anyway, characters. Let's read up on the characters, shall we? Let's begin for our boy Alistair. Let's see, what is new? You know, one good thing about the Blight is how it brings people together. Yeah, one way to say it. Looks over at Al, bats eyelashes. Alistair was a novice Templar when Duncan recruited him into the Grey Wardens, or rescued him, as Alistair would say. His mother was a serving girl who died when Alistair was very young. He was raised by Eamon Gwarn, the Earl of Redcliffe for a time. The Earl's wife, Isidore, I don't like her, suspected the reason her husband took an interest in the welfare of a servant's child was that Alistair was Eamon's son. She insisted that the boy be sent away to the Chantry, 'cause fuck Isidore. Isidore's suspicions were unfounded, however. Alistair was not Eamon's son, but King Maric's. Yeah, that's true. Eamon sheltered the boy to hide his existence from Queen Rowan, Eamon's sister. Alistair is fascinated by magic, even if his life is defined by fighting its darker manifestations. He has a fondness for strange runestones and figural studies of arcane creatures. Yeah, Al. My dear sweet Al. But moving on to 167, Connor Goring. I feel like I'm sleeping, but I guess I'm not. While most of the bands and Arls of Ferelden cart their children with them to the landsmeet in the interest of eventually marrying them off, Connor has spent his entire life at Redcliffe, and it's hardly surprising. The child possessed a gift of magic. By law, he should have been taken to the Circle of Magi at the first sign. Yes, he should have. Abdicating his claim to Redcliffe. Instead, the boy was kept out of public view, and his magic hushed up, with disastrous results. Yeah, this is one area where the Circle does better than most people, training children. All mages are beacons that attract the attention of Fade spirits. Because of this, they are trained and tested by the Circle to ensue that they can withstand the attacks of malevolent Fade creatures that seek entry into the waking world. Untrained Connor drew the attention of a powerful demon that tore the veil asunder. Yeah, and I 100% Isidol for this. He was freed from the demon's power at a terrible price. What? No, he wasn't. The cost of his... No, she wasn't! She's alive! The cost of his mother's life. Connor himself will be sent to the Circle, where he will no longer endanger innocent people. Good, as it should be, but yeah, Isidol's still alive. I don't know what this entry is talking about. And speaking of the lady herself, Arlessa Isidol. Entry 178. For the one who delivers the sacred ashes of Our Lady will have the esteem of Redcliffe, and all the riches it is my power to grant, which isn't that much, it turns out, at the end of the day. The Arling of Redcliffe was a source of constant trouble for the Emperor Reveil during the occupation. It was rumored that since each new report sent the Emperor into a fit of violent rage, his court had taken to poisoning messengers before they could deliver their accounts. Isidol's family was the 10th to be given the difficult task of governing Redcliffe, and since most of the previous Arls had either been murdered by their bands or beheaded by the Emperor, they did not approach the job with a great deal of enthusiasm, and can you blame them? I cannot. Isidol met Eben, not realizing he was the rightful heir to her father's domain, and quickly became smitten with him for being part of the resistance. Never mind that it was her family he was resisting. Wow, even as a child she had bad logic skills. Perhaps a bit too romantic for her own good, she insisted upon staying behind with Eamon when the rest of her family was driven out. When her only son began to show signs of possessing magic, Isidol tried to cover it up, which is mistake number 1, knowing that he would be taken from her by the Circle if found out. She hired an apostate mage to tutor him in secret. Mistake number 2, not checking his references. Also, actually this is 2 and 3, by not just letting him go to the Circle. Little knowing that her tutor was being paid to poison her husband, Emond, fell ill, and Connor, desperate, tried to use magic to save his father, magic that attracted the attention of a demon. She did not give her life. She is still alive. I mean, I made the joke that she did, but, you know, she's still alive. We did the blood ritual. Anyway, moving on before I get more mad. 182, Oghren. I'm not saying I should be your first pick for the dance partner at the inaugural ball, but in the deep roads, I'm your man. No, you're not. You're not even my man then. Oghren of House Condrat was once a promising member of the warrior caste. Actually, I know we've read some of this. Okay, there is a new entry toward the bottom. As time passed and it became more and more clear that Oghren had been abandoned, he became the butt of jokes, and okay. Here's the new text at the bottom. The Grey Warden Ulrika mounted a search for Branka and found her, and the Anvil of the Void, for which she led her house to their deaths. Yeah, Branka was not a nice lady. Oghren enjoys challenging his palate with alcohols of ever-increasing rarity, potency, and outright lethality. This has afforded him no benefit whatsoever. I don't know about that. He's figured out how longer it's going to take him to get drunk. Sten. In just a moment while I try to figure out what is new here. He was sent with a small group of Canary soldiers to investigate the blight and report back. Outside Lothering, they were ambushed by Darkspawn. They fought off the attack, but only Sten survived. Farmers found him dying and took him in. But when he awoke alone and unarmed, he panicked, killing the entire family. Realizing he had sacrificed his honor, Sten waited for the villagers to come, and surrendered, expecting death. His sword and his honor restored, 'cause Ulrika's awesome, yo. Sten chose to continue with Ulrika and take the battle to the Archdemon, 'cause he's a good friend. Sten has an eye for paintings, an appreciation that might seem out of character. Not really, it's all just a form of discipline, but it is actually an extension of Canary discipline. He respects an artist's careful composition, a skill that is as much about where the brush stops as where it begins. And that is all the codexes. This episode's been a little longer than usual, but I did want to get through them. Next time when we come back, we're going to talk to our companions, and then, if there's time, hey buddy, sup? Yeah, we were talking about you earlier. We will press on with the Urn of Sacred Ashes quest. But that's going to have to wait until next time. So until then, tak likatilok hiddo.